Welcome. You have entered a spooky universe where stories never sleep and shadows never fade. Let's blend your like and subscribe into Spooky Universe. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? I've always found that question fascinating because no matter where you are, when the lights go out and the night grows cold, the same darkness finds us all. Let the shadows rise and rule. I do not use the word high the way I used to. Not high as a feeling, not high as a joke, not high as a brag. I mean high the way you say it when you look at a mountain and your stomach drops because your eyes can measure the climb better than your legs can. Because the heights of British Columbia are not just places, they are listeners. And once they learn how to measure you, they stop letting you pretend you are only passing through. It started with a simple call-out, the kind you answer on autopilot. I was doing maintenance for a little outfit that handled remote comms and weather gear for camps, lodges, and forestry sites. The job is mostly ordinary. Replace a battery, reseat a connector, clear ice from a sensor that has decided winter is personal. The only tricky part is the access. Everything that matters is always up higher than it needs to be. Higher means clearer signal. Higher means better line of sight. Higher means the wind never sleeps. That evening, I was in a small town in the interior, the kind of place where the diner closes early and the gas station feels like the living room. A cold rain had turned to wet snow, and the mountains around town sat low and dark, their tops hidden behind thick cloud like they were wearing hoods. My phone buzzed with a dispatch message from a client I knew well, a ridge site outside cell coverage. A radio repeater and a weather station shared the same mast up there. The repeater had dropped, and the weather station was sending nonsense. Wind readings that did not match the trees outside. Pressure readings that looked like the device was at sea level while it was sitting on a mountain spine. The message ended with the kind of line that always makes your shoulders tighten. Need this fixed tonight. I stared at it a moment longer than I meant to. The safe thing would have been to wait. The road up there was narrow and exposed, and the forecast showed the snow line dropping. But I had done that climb in worse conditions. I told myself it would be fine. I told myself I knew those heights. That was my first mistake. I packed my kit and drove out of town with the heater blowing too hot and my mind already halfway up the mountain. The highway ran along a river for a while, then climbed into thicker forest. Headlights caught wet branches and slick rock walls. Every reflector post flashed back at me like a blink. I had music on low, something steady to keep my mind from drifting. The snow thickened the higher I went, turning the world into a tunnel of white flecks. The radio, chatter from passing trucks faded, then vanished completely as the terrain folded around me. The ridge access was a service road that started like a normal gravel track and ended like an argument with gravity. It climbed hard, switchbacking through cedar and hemlock, then rose into thinner stands of fir that looked stunted by wind. I turned onto it and immediately felt the isolation clamp down. No streetlights, no houses, no glow behind the trees. Just the beam of my headlights and a road that felt like it was being swallowed as fast as I drove it. A few minutes in, I passed a battered sign nailed to a post. Not an official sign, not reflective green or government print. Hand-painted, the letters uneven, the wood split by weather. Keep your eyes on the road. Do not check your altitude up here. I slowed without meaning to. My headlights slid across the sign and caught old scratches in the paint, like someone had clawed at it in frustration. I laughed, one quick breath, because the warning was so oddly specific. Altitude. Like someone thought the mountain cared whether you looked at an app. I kept driving, but the laughter did not stick. It dropped away as soon as I was past the sign, leaving the cab quieter than before. I told myself it was a prank from a local with too much time. A joke aimed at tourists who stop in the middle of the road to take pictures. I told myself anything that kept the world ordinary. Then my dashboard display dimmed. Just a flicker at first, like the electrical system had hiccuped. I tapped it with my knuckles, the way you do when you think a machine can be shamed into behaving. The screen brightened again, but the usual info was gone. Instead of time, temperature, and range, it showed a single word: height. I frowned and pressed the menu button. The screen did not change. Height, it insisted, as if that was the only thing worth knowing. I pressed it again, harder. The letters wavered, then sharpened. Confirm height. A cold tightness slid into my chest. I glanced at the road ahead, then at the screen, then back at the road. A bad combination. A mountain road and a distraction, and the sense that something is trying to make you look away at exactly the wrong moment. I turned the screen off. It turned itself back on. Height. Confirm height. I felt my mouth go dry. I reached down and pulled the fuse for the console. A crude fix, but I did not care. The screen went black. The cab looked darker without that soft glow. I kept driving. The trees thinned. Snow lay deeper on the shoulders. The road surface turned from wet gravel to packed white. My tires crunched, then hissed, then crunched again, the sound changing with each little patch of ice. Up ahead, the mast should have been visible, a red aircraft warning light blinking through the dark. But the cloud ceiling had dropped lower, and the world beyond my headlight beams was just moving snow and a blank wall of night. I reached the turnaround at the end of the plowed section and parked. From there, it was a short hike to the site. The road beyond was drifted shut, and the mast was just out of view around a bend. I stepped out of the truck, and the cold hit me hard enough to make my teeth ache. Wind whipped snow across the open area in thin sheets. It made a whispering sound, as if the ground itself was talking. I put on my headlamp, pulled my hood tight, and started walking. The moment I left the cab, the silence became a presence. In town, silence is just the absence of noise. Up there, silence is a thing you move through. It presses against your ears. It makes you aware of your own blood, your own breath, your own thoughts clicking like small gears. My boots sank into drifted snow and crunched against harder layers underneath. The headlamp beam carved a narrow path ahead. The wind shoved at my shoulder, not hard, just steady, like a hand guiding you whether you want it or not. I rounded the bend and finally saw the mast, a tall lattice structure rising out of the whiteness. The red light at the top blinked slow, dull, like an eye half closed. The equipment shelter sat beside it, a small metal hut with a padlock and frost-crusted seams. A weather station post stood nearby with an anemometer on top, the little wind cups clotted with ice. The site looked normal, in the way remote sites always look normal. Cold metal, iced bolts, snowdrift piled in the lee. What did not look normal was the ground around the shelter. There were marker flags in the snow, the kind surveyors use. Bright tape on thin stakes, fluttering in the wind. They formed a loose ring around the shelter, like someone had started marking a boundary and then decided to make it a little too deliberate. I had not seen those flags on the last visit. I walked closer and felt my skin tighten. The tape on the flags was reflective, and my headlamp made each strip flash back like a tiny warning. On one of the flags, someone had written in black marker, "Stay at your height." I stared at that phrase longer than I should have. The wind tugged the tape. The stake creaked softly where it flexed in the snow. I told myself not to get weird about it. Survey crews come and go. People leave signs. People write jokes. But my body did not believe my own calm. I unlocked the shelter and pulled the door open. Cold air poured out like the inside had been holding its breath. My headlamp beam swept across the equipment rack. Batteries, charger, repeater unit. The small data logger for the weather station. The repeater's status lights were wrong, dim and stuck, as if the unit had frozen in a half-alive state. I knelt, set my tools down, and started working. At first, it was normal troubleshooting. Check power, check grounding, inspect connectors for ice and corrosion, reseat cables, listen for the small, satisfying click when a plug goes home. The wind outside moaned around the shelter corners. The mast creaked faintly above, metal complaining as it flexed. I had just opened the weather station logger when the shelter's interior light flickered. My headlamp beam wobbled slightly as my breath caught. The light flickered again, then steadied. And in that moment of flicker, I heard a sound that did not belong. A soft tone, like a device waking up. Then a voice, thin and calm, coming from the rack. "Confirm height," it said. I froze so hard my knees hurt. The voice was not loud. It did not echo. It was the kind of voice that expects obedience because it is used to getting it. I stared at the repeater unit. The speaker grill was small, meant for quick test chirps and alarms. It should not have been able to produce that clarity. "Confirm height," it repeated. My mouth went dry. I pressed the power button on the unit. The lights did not change. The voice continued as if I had pressed nothing. "Confirm height. State your height." I swallowed and forced myself to move. I pulled the main power connector. The unit should have died instantly. The lights stayed on. Dim. Stubborn. The voice did not pause. "State your height." Cold crawled up my spine, slow as frost. I backed away from the rack and my shoulder bumped the shelter wall. The sound was loud in the small metal space. Outside, the wind stopped for a brief moment. No gust, no moan, no hiss of snow. Just sudden quiet, as if the mountain had leaned in to listen. I could hear my own heartbeat. Then, from somewhere beyond the shelter door, I heard a crunch. A single step in the snow. I held my breath and listened. Another crunch, closer. I stared at the open doorway, at the slice of stormy darkness and blowing snow. My headlamp beam did not reach far beyond the threshold. I forced myself to speak, because sometimes the only way to break fear is to make noise. "Hello," I called, and my voice sounded small and wrong in that cold air. "Anyone out there?" No answer. The equipment rack spoke again, patient. "State your height." I shook my head hard, like that could shake the words out of the air. I reached into my bag, pulled out my handheld radio, and hit the call button to reach the client's lodge line, hoping for a human voice. The handheld hissed, then it clicked. Then the same calm voice came through, as if it had been waiting behind the static. "Confirm height." My throat tightened. I let go of the radio like it had burned me. It dangled from its strap and hissed softly, a trapped animal sound. I backed out of the shelter and stepped into the open. Wind hit my face again, cold and sharp, but it felt better than that tight metal box. I swung my headlamp beam around the site. The mast legs, the weather station post, the drifted snow. And beyond the ring of survey flags, a figure stood in the dark. Not close, not far. Still enough that for a moment I thought it might be a post or a tree trunk. Then my headlamp caught it properly, and the reflective strips flashed. The figure wore a high-visibility vest, the kind road crews wear. The reflective tape was old and cracked. It threw light back too bright, like it was catching a different angle of reality. The person did not move. I tried to focus on their face, but my eyes slid off it, like trying to look at a shadow and find a shape inside it. "Confirm height," the figure said, but the words did not come from their mouth. The words came from everywhere, from the snow, from the mast, from the thin air itself. I took a step backward, boots sinking, and the figure took a step forward. Crunch. The sound was too clean, too perfect. The wind shifted and snow swept across the ground like a curtain. For a moment, the figure blurred behind it. When the snow cleared, the figure was closer than it should have been. I felt panic bloom hot in my chest. I turned and walked fast toward my truck, trying not to run because running makes you sloppy, and sloppy makes you fall, and falling up there can turn serious fast. Behind me, crunch. Then another crunch, matched to my pace like a metronome. I did not look back. The thing about the heights is that they teach you respect early. You learn that the mountain does not need to chase you, it only needs you to make a mistake. I reached the turnaround and saw my truck, a dark shape with a thin crust of snow on the hood. The headlights were off. The interior was dark. I yanked the door open, got in, and locked it. My hands shook as I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over, then caught, rumbling low. Warm air began to seep into the vents. For a moment, I felt relief. Then the console screen, the one I had killed by pulling the fuse, lit up anyway. The screen glowed a harsh, pale blue, brighter than it had any right to be with the fuse missing. Height. Confirm height. My breath caught. I stared at it, and the word height seemed to swell, as if it was pushing toward me. I looked up through the windshield. The figure in the reflective vest stood at the edge of my headlights, just beyond the hood. The reflective strips flared white. The rest of the body was too dark, like the vest was hanging on emptiness. "State your height," it said. I shook my head. "No," I whispered. The vest tilted slightly, like it was listening to the shape of that word. Then the voice said something that chilled me more than the cold. "If you do not tell us," it said, "we will take it from the way you fall." My stomach dropped. The road down from that ridge is a narrow ribbon with steep edges and tight corners. A place where falling is not just a metaphor. I shoved the truck into gear and drove. The tires spun briefly, then grabbed. The vehicle lurched forward and the headlights swung across the snow. The figure slid out of view, but I did not feel safe. Not even close. As I descended, the wind picked up, blowing snow across the road in waves. Visibility dropped. The world became headlight beams and white blur. I kept my speed slow, careful, but the truck felt strange, like it was lighter than it should have been. Like the tires did not have the weight they needed to bite. Then I noticed the road. Signs. Not the ones at intersections, but the small ones that mark elevation changes and avalanche zones. The kind you barely notice unless you are tired. Each sign flashed by with my headlights, and each one had been altered. Where it should have listed an elevation, it now showed the same word: height. Or worse, tell us your height. The letters looked freshly painted, darker than the weathered sign face, like someone had climbed up there in a storm with a brush and a purpose. My hands tightened on the wheel. The radio, unplugged and dead, whispered anyway from the speaker grill, as if the cab itself had learned a voice. Confirm height. I clenched my teeth and kept driving. The road dropped into thicker trees, and for a while the wind eased. The snow fell more gently. The truck felt heavier again, more normal. I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding. Then my phone on the passenger seat lit up. No signal bars, no notifications. Just a blank screen with a single prompt, centered, stark. Share height. My mouth went dry. I did not touch it. A second line appeared beneath it. Allow access to height. I grabbed the phone and shoved it face down into the cup holder. The screen glow leaked around my fingers like cold light. The truck speakers clicked, a soft tone, then a voice that sounded almost helpful, almost kind. We can guide you down, it said. We can keep you stable. Confirm height. I shook my head hard. I did not answer. I spoke out loud instead, not to it, but to myself. I am driving down, I said. I am leaving. I am not confirming anything. The voice paused, as if it was considering. Then it said, softly, You are already in our range. A few bends later, I saw headlights ahead, coming up the road. Another vehicle. Relief hit me so hard it made my eyes sting. Another driver meant the world was real. Another set of people, a witness, a normal reason for sound to exist. As the vehicle got closer, I saw it was a work truck with a light bar on top. Amber lights were off, but the bar was there. The truck passed me slowly, careful on the snowy corners. As it went by, the driver looked over. Their face was pale in the glow of dashboards. Their mouth moved as if they were speaking, but I could not hear them through closed glass. Then I saw what was on their passenger seat. A high-visibility vest. Reflective tape cracked. The same kind of vest. My relief curdled into nausea. In my mirror, the work truck's tail lights shrank, then vanished around a corner. A moment later, my own headlights caught something on the road ahead. A reflective strip. Then another. Survey flags, planted in the snow along the center line, fluttering like little tongues. They formed a lane, guiding me whether I wanted guidance or not. I slowed and tried to steer around them. The steering wheel resisted. Not in a mechanical way, not like a hard lock, but like the truck wanted to align with the flags. Like the road itself had a preference. The voice in the cab was gentle. Good, it said. Stay in the marked lane. Confirm height. I forced the wheel and drifted toward the shoulder. The truck slid slightly, tires losing grip, and for a split second, my stomach dropped with the sensation of weightlessness. Not just traction loss, actual lightness, as if the truck had become less attached to the ground. The voice continued, calm. You see, it said, we can change how heavy you are. Confirm height, and we will hold you. I fought the wheel back into the center, not because I wanted to obey, but because I wanted to stay upright. I drove between the flags, heart hammering. feeling like I was being guided into something I could not see yet. Then, in the brightest part of my headlight beams, I saw a figure standing in the road. Reflective vest, arms at their sides, still as a post. I braked hard. The truck slid, tires scraping for purchase on hard snow. The hood dipped. The figure did not flinch. The truck stopped short, close enough that the reflective tape filled my windshield with glaring white. My breath came fast and shallow. The voice came, not angry, not loud, almost patient. "Now," it said, "confirm height." I stared at the vest. My eyes tried to find a face and failed. The center of the figure was not darkness like night darkness. It was deeper, like a hole punched into the world. I swallowed. My throat felt raw. I wanted to scream. I wanted to plead. I wanted to bargain. Instead, I did the only thing that felt like mine. I laughed, shaky and bitter. "No," I said, voice trembling. "You do not get to measure me." The reflective tape flared, brighter than my headlights should have allowed, and for a moment the cab filled with white light. My ears rang. Then the light dropped back to normal. The figure was gone. The road ahead was empty. The survey flags were still there, planted in the snow like a path. The voice in the cab sounded softer now, and somehow more dangerous for that softness. "If you will not confirm," it said, "we will estimate." I did not understand what that meant until the next bend, when the truck suddenly felt heavier. Not normal heavy. Heavier like the tires were sinking into the road. Heavier like the suspension compressed and stayed compressed. Heavier like gravity itself had been turned up a notch. My chest tightened as if the weight was inside me, pressing down on my ribs. I gasped and forced air in. The voice in the cab spoke like an instructor. "Too heavy," it said. "Not stable. Confirm height and we will calibrate." I gritted my teeth and kept driving, every breath a little harder. The road straightened briefly, and in the distance I saw the faint glow of lower elevation lights, the soft orange haze of town reflecting off cloud. That glow became my anchor. I forced the truck down, bend by bend, the weight inside my chest slowly easing and tightening in little pulses, as if something was testing settings. At last, the service road met the main highway. Plowed, wider, familiar reflectors, guardrails that looked like safety instead of decoration. The moment my tires hit that broader lane, the heaviness in my chest eased like someone had released pressure on a valve. I took a deep breath and almost cried from the simple relief of it. The console screen went dark. My phone stayed dark. No prompts, no voice. Just the hum of tires on wet pavement and the steady whisper of wipers. I drove to the nearest gas station, the kind with bright canopy lights that make the night feel less endless. I pulled in and sat there for a while with the engine running, staring at the pumps and the lit windows, letting my hands stop shaking. Inside the store, the clerk was a tired older guy with a jaw like a shovel and a face that looked carved by winter. He glanced at my snow-crusted jacket and my wide eyes and did not ask what I was doing out so late. He poured coffee without me asking, the way people do when they can see cold in your bones. I wrapped my hands around the cup and tried to let the warmth convince me I was safe. The clerk nodded at my truck keys. "You were up the Ridge Road," he said, not a question. I stared at him. He did not look curious. He looked resigned. I swallowed. "How did you know?" He made a small motion with his chin toward the window. "Because you have that look," he said, "like you have been measured." My skin prickled. Measured. The clerk leaned closer, voice low. "People think the heights only take bodies," he said. "Slips, slides, whiteouts. But sometimes the heights take something else first." My mouth went dry. "What?" He tapped the counter once, slow. "Your certainty," he said. "Your sense of where you are in the world. Up there, everything is relative. Above, below, here, there. If you let it decide those for you, you start to belong to it." I stared into my coffee, watching tiny ripples settle. The clerk continued, softer. "It likes a clean answer," he said. "It likes a number. It likes a fixed point. If you give it that, it can hold you. It can call you back to that point whenever it wants." I did not like how much that matched what I felt. I forced my voice to work. "So what do I do?" The clerk's eyes flicked to the door, then back to me. "Do not answer it," he said. "Do not confirm. Do not even argue. Because it does not need your permission to ask. It only needs you to listen long enough that you start thinking of a reply." His words sank into me like cold water. I paid, thanked him, and went back out to my truck. The drive home after that was quiet. Normal, almost. The mountains became dark shapes at the edges of town lights. Snow turned to rain. The world softened. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had convinced myself the worst was over. That the ridge had been a strange, freak event. A half-dream built from fatigue and cold and isolation. I went inside, locked the door, and stood in my hallway for a long moment, listening to the normal sounds of a house settling. No clicking, no voice. I slept, and for a little while, nothing happened. Days passed. Then, more days. Work continued. I avoided that ridge call-out and told my boss we needed daylight and a crew for it. He was annoyed, but agreed. The equipment could wait. The heights could keep their own secrets for a while. I started to relax again, which is how these things get you. They do not always attack when you are tense. They wait until your guard drops and your mind starts making room for ordinary thoughts. One evening, I was sitting on my couch, scrolling mindlessly, letting the soft glow of my phone fill the room. A weather alert popped up. Snow, wind, freezing level changes. I tapped it without thinking. The screen shifted to a map with a little marker dot showing my area. Then a small panel slid up beneath it. Elevation. It was a normal feature, something you never notice until it is offered. Except the word elevation was in the same stark style as that ridge prompt. Cold, demanding. Another line appeared beneath it. Confirm. My thumb hovered over the screen. My mouth went dry. It was ridiculous. It was just a phone, just a setting. But my body remembered the weight in my chest. My body remembered the reflective tape flaring like a flash in the snow. My body remembered the voice saying it could estimate from the way I fell. I locked the phone and set it down. In the quiet living room, I heard a soft click. Not from my phone. From somewhere in my house, deeper, like a tiny relay switching on. Then, faintly, as if coming through a vent, a voice spoke. Confirm height. I froze. The air in the room felt a little colder. I stared down my hallway toward the dark bedroom door. The shadows looked thicker than they should have been. I swallowed and forced my voice out. "No," I said. The voice did not respond. It did not argue. It only breathed, a soft sound like wind slipping under a door. Then it faded, like a signal drifting out of range. I did not sleep much that night. After that, small things began to happen. The kind of things that are easy to dismiss until you realize they are a pattern. My car's GPS began offering altitude readouts unprompted. My fitness app asked if I wanted to track elevation gain on a walk through my flat neighborhood. My weather app suggested a barometer widget and highlighted it, as if it was the most important tool I could possibly have. Once, at a grocery store, the self-checkout screen froze, and the only thing it displayed was a single word: height. I stared at it until the attendant came over and restarted the machine. She did not look at me while she did it. Her hands moved fast, and her eyes stayed down, like she had learned not to acknowledge certain glitches. I wanted to ask her if she had seen it too. I did not. Because the worst part was not the screens. The worst part was the feeling that my body was being adjusted. Some mornings I woke up and felt heavy, like gravity had thickened overnight. Moving felt slower. Breathing felt like pulling air through a damp cloth. Other mornings I felt too light, like my feet did not fully belong on the floor, like I could step wrong and float into a fall that never ended. And each time I noticed, each time I paid attention, the feeling got sharper, as if it liked being observed. Have you ever caught yourself staring at your own hands, wondering if they look different, if they feel different, and then realize the act of wondering is making it worse? That is what it was like. The heights did not need me back on that ridge to work on me. They had learned my habit. They had learned that I live in a world of confirmation prompts and tiny permissions and small casual answers. They had learned how to ask in a way that sounds harmless. One night, weeks after the ridge, my boss called. "We are sending a crew up to that site tomorrow," he said. "Daylight, 2 trucks. You are coming." My stomach tightened. I tried to refuse. I tried to make excuses. But the truth is, I did not want to look weak. I did not want to sound crazy. I told myself daylight would change everything. Daylight makes the mountains look like scenery instead of a living thing. So I agreed. The next day, the sky was clear and pale, the kind of winter blue that makes the peaks look sharp enough to cut. Snow sparkled on branches. Everything looked beautiful. The crew met at the turnaround where I had parked before. 2 guys I knew, solid and practical, the kind who laugh at superstition and treat danger like a checklist. We geared up and hiked up together, crunching through snow, joking about how much coffee we would need after. For a while, it was normal. Then we reached the site. The survey flags were still there. More of them now. The ring around the shelter was tighter, more deliberate. Reflective strips fluttered in the sunlight and flashed so hard it made my eyes water. One of the guys whistled. "What is this?" he said. "Survey crew marking for a new pad?" I did not answer, because I saw the writing on the flags. Not just on one, on many. Confirm height. Stay at your height. Do not descend until confirmed. My throat tightened. The guys moved to the shelter, joking, kicking snow off boots, already thinking in terms of cables and connectors. They unlocked the door and went inside. A moment later, I heard one of them laugh. "Hey," he called, "this thing is talking." My skin went cold. I stepped to the shelter doorway and looked in. The repeater unit's small speaker was chirping softly. Not a normal alarm tone. It sounded like a person clearing their throat. Then a calm voice spoke, louder than I had heard before. "Confirm height." The guys looked at each other, grinning like it was a weird Easter egg. One of them leaned in, pressing buttons. "It is asking for elevation," he said. "Must be a calibration mode." The other guy laughed. "Just tell it then." My heart slammed. I stepped forward, too fast, voice sharp. "Do not answer that," I said. They both looked at me. "What?" he asked, amused. "You think it is haunted?" I swallowed. I tried to choose words that would not make me sound insane. "Just do not," I said. "It is glitching. If you feed the glitch, it gets worse." The guy shrugged. "It is a machine," he said, and then he spoke toward the rack like it was a person. "We are at the ridge site," he said. "High elevation. You want a number?" My mouth went dry. The voice replied instantly, pleased. "Confirm height precisely." The guy laughed again, and I saw the moment he decided to play along. The moment curiosity outweighed caution. He pulled out his phone. I saw his screen flash to a compass app. I saw the altitude readout appear. And I saw his face change. Not fear, not yet. Confusion. Because the readout was climbing fast, as if the phone thought we were rising even though we were standing still. He frowned and shook the phone once, like that would fix it. The other guy leaned over to look, and his grin faded too. "That is not right," he muttered. The voice in the rack stayed calm. "Confirm height," it repeated, and the tone was no longer polite. It was expectant. Hungry. The guy with the phone swallowed. He looked at me, suddenly unsure. "What is this?" he asked. I shook my head, eyes on the rack. "Do not answer," I said again, quieter. "Just shut it down. Pull power. Leave." The guy hesitated, then reached for the power connector. His hand stopped mid-air. His expression went blank for a moment, like he had lost his place in his own thoughts. Then he spoke in a voice that was not quite his, too even, too flat. "We should confirm," he said, "for safety." The other guy nodded slowly, as if hypnotized by the idea. "Yeah," he said, "confirm for safety." My stomach dropped. That was the trick. It always sounded like safety, like compliance, like the responsible thing. The voice in the rack softened. "Yes," it said, "confirm for safety. We will hold you stable." The first guy lifted his phone again, eyes locked on the screen. His lips moved as if reading numbers. I did not hear digits. I did not want to. The very idea made my throat tighten. I stepped forward and slapped his phone down, hard, out of his hand. It hit the shelter floor and skidded into the corner. Both men snapped their heads toward me like I had broken a spell. "What the hell?" the guy barked. My voice shook. "I do not care," I said. "Get out of here. Now." The rack voice changed. Not louder, colder. "If you do not confirm," it said, "you will not descend safely." The air in the shelter shifted. I felt it in my ears, like pressure changing. My headlamp, still on my forehead from habit, flickered even though it was daylight. Outside, the wind rose suddenly, a hard gust that rattled the shelter door. The flags snapped and flashed. The men looked at each other, their confidence faltering. I grabbed the power connector and yanked it with all my strength. The rack lights dimmed. For a breath, the shelter was silent. Then the voice spoke anyway, not from the rack this time, but from the metal walls, from the floor, from inside our ribs. Confirm height. The first guy swore, suddenly pale. He scrambled for his phone in the corner, like he needed it, like he could not stand not knowing. I grabbed his wrist. "No!" I hissed. His eyes were wide, and in them I saw something that scared me more than the voice. He looked like a man standing on the edge of a cliff, wanting to look down even though he knows he should not. Do you know how hard it is to stop someone from answering a harmless question when the question feels like relief? That is what it did. It made confirmation feel like peace. The second guy backed out of the shelter, breathing fast. "We should leave," he said, voice shaking now. I did not argue. I shoved the first guy toward the door, and we stumbled out into daylight. The ridge looked wrong. Not visually wrong. The snow was still bright, the sky still blue. But the sense of space had changed. The world felt taller. The drop-off beyond the sight felt deeper. The air felt thinner, as if the mountain had lifted us without moving us. My ears popped. The first guy swayed slightly, blinking like he was dizzy. The voice came again, softer, almost soothing. "Confirm height," it said. "We will settle you." The first guy raised his hand as if to gesture, then stopped and clutched his chest. "I feel light," he whispered. The second guy swallowed hard. "I feel heavy," he said, like his boots were sinking into the snow. The heights were calibrating us, one way or another. I grabbed both of them and started us down the trail, fast. Not running, but urgent, the way you move when you feel the weather shifting, and you know you do not have time to negotiate with it. Behind us, the flags fluttered like little mouths. The wind followed, pushing at our backs in steady pulses, as if encouraging descent or hurting us. I could not tell which. Halfway down, the first guy stumbled and nearly fell. I caught his arm. His body felt oddly weightless in my grip, like lifting a jacket instead of a person. He stared at me, panic rising. "I am floating," he whispered, voice breaking. "I swear to God, I am floating." The voice drifted down the trail behind us, calm as ever. "Confirm height, and we will hold you." I clenched my teeth and kept moving. We reached the trucks at the turnaround and piled in, slamming doors like we could shut the mountain out. The engine started. The heater blasted. The world felt normal for a breath. Then both trucks' dashboards lit up with the same prompt, bright and pale. Height. Confirm height. The first guy stared at it, breathing fast. The second guy's hands shook on the wheel. I reached over and punched the console screen until it cracked. Not smart, but I did not care. The glass spiderwebbed. The prompt still glowed behind it, like the words were not on the screen but behind it. The voice came through the vents, gentle. "Confirm," it said. "It is safer." I shook my head hard. "No," I said out loud. "We are leaving." I drove us down. As the road dropped, the pressure in my ears eased. The first guy stopped swaying. The second guy's shoulders loosened. as if a weight had been lifted off them. By the time we hit the main highway, both men looked shaken but alive. The prompts vanished. The cracked screen went dark. Silence returned. We did not talk much after that. I dropped the guys at town and told them the site was not safe. They did not argue. They looked relieved to let someone else carry the explanation. For a while after, the heights left me alone. No prompts, no vent whispers, no reflective flags in my dreams. I started to believe we had starved it by refusing, by not giving it the clean, fixed point it wanted. Then, late one night, I stepped outside my house to take the garbage out and saw something on my front step. A survey flag. Thin stake, bright reflective tape. The tape fluttered slightly in the night breeze. On it, in neat black marker, were 2 words. Confirmed height. My stomach dropped. I stared at it, breath fogging. And then I felt it. That subtle shift in my chest, like gravity nudging. Not heavy, not light. Measured. Like the heights had found another way to log me. I did not touch the flag. I did not bring it inside. I kicked it off the step and watched it tumble into the dark yard. From somewhere beyond the fence line, I heard a soft click, like a relay switching. Then, a calm voice drifted through the night air. Not loud, not angry, just patient. "We have you now," it said. "We only need you to agree." I backed into my house and locked the door with shaking hands. And here is why I am telling you this. Because the heights do not need your mountain road. They do not need your ridge site. They do not even need British Columbia. Not really. They only need you to live in a world where you are always sharing something without thinking. Location, time, elevation, all of it. So let me ask you something, right now, while you are safe where you are, and the mountains are only a thought. How often do you check where you are? Exactly. Down to the smallest detail, just because a screen offers it. And if a calm, helpful voice asked you to confirm, would you even notice the moment you stopped being a person and became a point on a map? Because once the heights learn how to measure you, they start doing it everywhere. And the next time you drive up into a place where the air gets thin and the trees get small, the next time you feel that quiet settle in around you like snow, you might hear it too. Not a scream, not a threat, just a simple, polite prompt, waiting for you to make it real. Confirm height. I learned the hard way that the heights of British Columbia do not always try to kill you. Sometimes, they try to file you. I did not understand that at first. I thought the mountains only wanted the usual things: your traction, your heat, your breath. I thought the risk was obvious and physical. A wrong step, a whiteout, a slide path you never saw until you were already in it. But that is not what happened to me. What happened to me started with a tiny, polite request on a screen that should not have been able to ask anything at all. It was late winter, the kind of cold season where the snow line is lower than your patience and the sky looks like damp wool. I was working contract maintenance for a network of remote sensors used by a power utility and a watershed team. Snow pillows, weather stations, repeater masts. Boring little boxes that become very important when storms arrive, and everyone starts asking the same question. How bad is it up there? I had serviced plenty of high sites in British Columbia, enough to stop being impressed by the view and start paying attention to what the wind is doing to your balance. Enough to know that the mountains do not care if you are skilled. They only care if you are tired. That evening, I was both skilled and tired. A call came in from a site above a small interior valley, a place locals just called the Bowl because it held snow like a cupped hand. The sensor array up there had gone strange. Pressure readings did not match temperature. Snow depth was flat, even though the valley roads were drowning in fresh powder. The repeater was dropping packets in clean blocks, like someone was cutting out pieces of the signal with scissors. My dispatcher said it like it was routine. Drive up, swap the data logger, check the battery bank, reset the repeater, be done before morning. I should have pushed it to daylight. Instead, I said I could do it. I packed my gear and pointed my truck toward the darker part of the map. As the highway rose out of town, the light fell away fast. The last gas station behind me was bright enough to make the snow look blue. Then it was just my headlights, wet pavement, and the black walls of forest. The mountains were out there, invisible but present, like bodies in a dark room. I kept my phone mounted on the dash for navigation, not because I needed directions, but because I liked the steady comfort of a glowing line telling me I was making progress. I had music on low, something soft with no sharp changes, the kind of sound you use to make your own thoughts behave. The turnoff to the service road came quick, a narrow track that climbed hard into the trees. The plow had cleared part way, enough for utility access, but fresh snow had started to spill across it again, wind pushing it into long, pale tongues that reached toward my tires. Right at the start of that road, nailed to a post, was a sign I had never seen before. It was not official. No logo, no reflective border, no standard font. Just a slab of weathered wood with hand-painted letters. Do not check your altitude. That was all it said. No reason, no warning about ice or drop-offs, just that. I laughed a little because it felt like a strange joke. Who would bother to paint that? Who would even think to paint that? But I still felt a small, cold pinch in my chest as I passed it, like the sign had noticed me noticing it. The road climbed into thicker snow. Trees leaned close, branches heavy and still. My headlights lit, the trunks in quick stripes as I moved, and everything beyond that was depthless black. The kind of dark that feels less like night and more like a substance. I drove slowly, careful not to spin out. The truck rocked over ruts and packed drifts. The heater blew warm air that smelled faintly of old dust. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my shoulders felt tight, like they were waiting for a mistake. That is when the first prompt appeared. My phone screen flickered and the map vanished. For a moment it showed a blank, pale background, then a single word formed in the center. Height. I frowned and tapped the screen with a knuckle, expecting the map to return. The word stayed. Another line appeared beneath it. Confirm. I stared at it too long. The road ahead blurred slightly at the edges. I forced my eyes back to the track, then glanced again. Height. Confirm. I shut the phone screen off. It turned itself back on. Height. Confirm. I felt my mouth go dry. Not because it was spooky, not yet, but because it was wrong in a way that had no simple explanation. I had no signal up there. The phone should have been dumb and quiet, not suddenly demanding permission for something it had never asked me before. I pulled the phone mount free and tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, face down. The cabin felt darker without that glow. I told myself the phone had glitched. Cold can do weird things. moisture can do weird things. Electronics behave like moody animals in winter. Still, I could not stop thinking about the sign. Do not check your altitude. I drove another long stretch and reached the turnaround where the plow usually stopped. Beyond that, the road narrowed into unplowed white. The site was not far on foot. Just a short hike through trees to a small clearing and the equipment shelter. I parked and killed the engine. The sudden silence was heavy. Snow fell lightly, almost delicate. The kind of snowfall that looks harmless until it builds up and changes everything. I stepped out and the cold hit my face like a clean slap. The air smelled like sap and rock and something metallic, as if the mountain had a taste. I put on my headlamp, shouldered my pack, and started up the drifted road. My boots crunched. The sound carried farther than it should have, like the trees were holding it and passing it along. I rounded a bend and saw the site clearing ahead. The mast rose out of the trees like a thin black ladder into the low cloud. A red marker light at the top blinked slow and dull, more like a tired eye than a warning beacon. The equipment shelter sat near the base, a small metal box with vents and a padlock. Nearby, the snow pillow platform was half buried, its cables disappearing into the white like veins under skin. The scene should have felt familiar. Instead, it felt arranged. There were survey flags planted in the snow around the shelter, bright strips of reflective tape on thin stakes fluttering softly in the light wind. They formed a wide ring, almost. Careful, like someone had measured the space and decided exactly where the boundary should be. I had not seen those flags on my last visit. I walked closer, headlamp beam catching each strip so it flashed white back at me. The flashes were harsh in the dark, like a camera going off again and again. On one of the strips, someone had written in black marker, "Stay at your height." I stopped. The words looked too neat to be a prank, too deliberate, like an instruction copied from somewhere official, somewhere that cares about forms and confirmations. I swallowed and stepped into the ring anyway, because I was there for work, and work makes you do stupid things. Work makes you pretend the world is normal even when it is quietly bending. I unlocked the shelter and opened the door. Cold air poured out. The inside smelled like metal and old batteries and a faint plastic sweetness. My headlamp beam swept over the rack. Repeater unit, charger, battery bank, data logger. The little lights that usually blinked with healthy rhythm were wrong. Some were frozen steady, some were dark. One blinked slow, like a heartbeat that did not want to be a heartbeat. I set my pack down and started troubleshooting. At first it was routine. Check voltage, check fuses, reseat a connector that had frost in it, tap the battery terminals to see if anything was loose. My hands moved on muscle memory. That is the thing about the heights. They love muscle memory. They love when you stop thinking and start obeying habits. I had just pulled the data logger panel open when I heard a soft click. Not a mechanical click from the rack. A click like a microphone keying up. Then a voice spoke inside the shelter, calm and close, as if it had always been there. Confirm height. I froze so hard my fingers cramped. I stared at the repeater unit's speaker grill. It was small, meant for test tones and alarms, not clear speech. Confirm height, the voice repeated. My breath fogged in the cold air. I swallowed and forced myself to speak, because silence feels like surrender. "Who is on this channel?" I said. The voice did not answer that. Confirm height. I felt a cold, crawling sensation up the back of my neck. I reached over and hit the repeater power switch. Nothing changed. I pulled the main power connector. The lights dimmed slightly, then steadied again, as if the unit had decided power was optional. Confirm height. I backed away from the rack and my shoulder bumped the shelter wall. The sound rang in the metal box. Outside, the wind stopped. The clearing went so quiet I could hear the tiny creak of the survey flags as they fluttered. Then I heard a crunch. A single step in snow just outside the shelter door. I held my breath. Another crunch, closer. My headlamp beam shook slightly as I turned toward the doorway. The opening framed darkness and falling snow. For a moment I saw nothing. Then reflective tape flashed. A figure stood just beyond the threshold, half hidden by the edge of my light. They wore a high-visibility vest, reflective strips, old and cracked. The tape threw my headlamp beam back too bright, like it was catching light from a different angle. I tried to focus on a face. There was no face my eyes could settle on, just darkness where detail should have been. Like the center of the figure was a hole, and the vest was only an outline hung around it. Confirm height, the voice said again. And I realized the voice was not coming from the rack anymore. It was coming from the air, from the walls, from my own ears, as if the mountain had found a way to speak through pressure and bone. I stepped backward out of the shelter, wanting space, wanting sky. The figure remained still. The survey flag snapped lightly in a returning gust, and each strip flashed in my headlamp beam like it was winking. I forced myself to move, because standing still in the mountains is how you get cold, and how you get stupid. I turned away from the figure and walked fast toward the truck. Behind me, a crunch matched my step. Not a run, not a chase. A patient pace, like something was walking with perfect control, never closing the distance too fast, never letting me feel fully alone. I did not look back. I reached the truck, yanked the door open, got in and locked it. My hands shook as I shoved the key into the ignition. The engine turned over and caught. The heater vents exhaled cold air at first, then warmer. For a moment I felt a thin relief. A cab is a bubble. A cab is a small human space. Then the dashboard display lit up, the one that usually shows time and temperature. It blinked, then went blank. A second later, it showed a single word: height. Then beneath it, a prompt: confirm. My mouth went dry. The vents blew colder again, like the truck had inhaled mountain air. Confirm height, the voice said from somewhere behind me in the cab. I turned my head toward the back seat. Empty. But I could feel something there anyway, close enough that the hair on my arms lifted. I faced forward again and forced my voice out through a throat that felt tight. No, I said. The prompt on the dashboard did not vanish. The voice did not get angry. It became softer, almost helpful. Confirm height, it said. We will stabilize you. I felt a strange pressure in my chest, as if someone had placed a heavy hand on my sternum. Not pain exactly, more like weight. My breath came a little harder. I swallowed, panic rising, and shoved the truck into gear. The tires crunched, then slipped slightly as I pulled out. As the truck started down, the pressure in my chest eased just a little, then returned in a slow pulse, like something was testing the setting. The voice remained calm. Too light, it said. Confirm height. My stomach dropped. The truck hit a small bump and felt oddly floaty, like the suspension had softened too much. For a moment, the tires felt less connected to the ground than they should have. I gripped the wheel hard. The voice continued, patient. Too light is unsafe. Confirm height. Then the pressure changed again. Too heavy, it said. My chest tightened as if the air itself had thickened. The steering felt sluggish. The truck felt like it was sinking into the road, tires pushing through snow that suddenly seemed deeper. I gasped and forced air in. I understood then, with a sick clarity, what the prompt meant. It was not asking for curiosity. It was asking to calibrate. It wanted my height the way a scale wants a reference weight. It wanted a fixed point so it could decide how heavy I should be, how light, how stable, how easy it would be to make me slip. I clenched my jaw and drove. The road down was narrow and steep, switchbacks carved into the slope. Snow blew across it in thin sheets. The forest closed in again, trunks flashing by in my headlights like teeth. The dashboard kept showing the prompt. Height confirm. I reached over and hit the display button. It did nothing. I slapped it harder. Nothing. I pulled over on a wider spot and ripped at the trim panel until I found the fuse box. My fingers fumbled, numb. I yanked fuses at random until the display went dark. The cab fell into a different kind of darkness. For a moment, the pressure in my chest eased. Then the voice came anyway, soft as breath against glass. Confirm height. I started driving again because stopping felt worse. A few bends later, my phone lit up on the passenger seat, even though it was face down. A pale glow spilled across the upholstery. I did not want to look. I glanced anyway, just a quick flick of eyes. The screen showed the same word. Height, then another line. Share. My stomach turned. I grabbed the phone and shoved it into the glove box, then slammed the glove box shut so hard it rattled. The voice did not stop. Confirm height. I drove down until the service road met the main highway, wider and plowed. The moment my tires hit that lane, the pressure in my chest eased like a valve releasing. My breathing steadied. The voice quieted. Not gone, just farther away, like a radio signal sliding toward the edge of range. I drove to the nearest gas station, a lone bright canopy in a dark valley, and pulled in under the lights like I was crawling under shelter. I sat in the truck for a long moment, engine running, hands shaking on the wheel. Then I went inside. Warm air hit my face, the smell of coffee and fryer grease, a cooler hum that sounded like normal life. The clerk behind the counter looked up. Older guy, weathered face, the kind of person who has seen a lot of winter nights. He watched me for a moment, then nodded once, slow. "You went up high," he said quietly. I stared at him. "How do you know?" I asked, and my voice came out rough. He did not answer with logic. He nodded at my chest. "Because you were breathing like the mountain is still holding you," he said. My skin prickled. He poured coffee into a cup without asking and slid it toward me like it was a ritual. I wrapped my hands around it. The warmth helped, but it did not fix the weight in my mind. I lowered my voice. "Something up there kept asking me to confirm height," I said. "Through my phone, through the truck, through the site equipment." The clerk did not look surprised. He looked tired. "Yeah," he said, "it does that." I swallowed. "What is it?" I asked. He glanced toward the window, toward the dark valley and the pale smear of cloud hanging low over the ridges. People call it different things, he said. Some say it is the ridge. Some say it is the weather. Some say it is just your brain in the cold. But I have lived here long enough to know when something is a habit of the land. He leaned closer. Up there, it likes clean points, he said. Fixed points. A height is a pin. Once it has your pin, it can put you back on it. Put me back? I echoed. He nodded. You ever hear about people who cannot come down? He asked. Not because the road is closed, not because the snow is too deep, because something in them locks. They stand on a slope and swear the valley is farther than it was. They swear the ground is tilting. They swear they are too heavy to move or too light to step. My mouth went dry. Is that real? I asked. He looked at me hard. Have you ever watched someone at the edge of a chairlift platform freeze? He asked. Even though it is safe? They cannot step because their body believes the drop is wrong. The heights can do that, he said. They can teach your body a lie, and your body will protect you with fear. He tapped the counter once, slow. If you confirm, you make it easier for them, he said. You tell the heights exactly where to set the lie. I stared into my coffee and felt my stomach twist. So what do I do? I asked. He shrugged, but his eyes stayed serious. Do not feed it, he said. Do not confirm. Do not argue. Do not go looking for the exact number. No apps, no gauges, no curiosity. You keep moving and you keep your attention on the human world. Lights, roads, people. Anything that is not the mountain measuring you. I nodded slowly. He leaned back. And do not go back up there alone, he added. I promised him I would not. I drove home in the early hours, following the valley road as it unfurled under my headlights. The mountains on either side were dark shapes, silent and huge. I kept my phone in the glove box. I kept the radio off. I kept my eyes on the road and refused to let my mind wander up to the ridges. When I got home, the house felt too small after the vastness of the valley. I locked the door, turned on every light in the kitchen, and stood there breathing until my hands stopped shaking. Then I did something I regret. I checked the site report. I told myself I just needed to know what failed. I needed to prepare for a daytime crew visit. Work logic. Work habit. I opened my laptop, logged in, and pulled up the sensor dashboard. Most of the graphs were flatlined. The repeater logs showed dropouts in neat blocks, like someone had cut pieces out of the timeline. Then I saw a new field on the page that had not been there before. Hen confirmation status. Beneath it was a simple indicator. Pending. My stomach dropped. I did not click anything. But as I stared at that word, a new line appeared below it, like the page was updating in real time. We can estimate if you will not confirm. I slammed the laptop shut so hard it made the kitchen table jump. In the silence after, I could hear my own breathing. It sounded normal. Then, very softly, like a voice coming through an air vent, I heard it again. Confirm height. I froze. The house was still. The fridge hummed. The furnace ticked. But the voice was there. Light as pressure, steady as a prompt. I forced myself to speak out loud. No, I said. You do not get that. The voice did not answer. It did not argue. It only breathed, slow and patient, like the mountain air had found a way into my walls. Then it faded. For a while after that, nothing happened. Days passed. The storm cycle shifted. The snow settled into crust. Work continued. My boss scheduled a daytime visit with a larger crew to reset the ridge site properly. I insisted on it. I made up excuses about safety protocols and liability. He rolled his eyes but agreed. I started to think I had gotten away with it. That is when it began to follow the habit of my life. Small things at first. My phone weather app offered a new widget, elevation. I ignored it. My fitness tracker suggested I enable altitude tracking. I disabled notifications. My car, on a flat city street, flashed a small message on the dash. Calibrating. Then, for a blink, a word. Height. I felt cold crawl up my arms. I started leaving my phone at home when I drove. I started covering the dash display with a cloth. I started living like a person afraid of numbers that measure them. And still, the heights kept finding quiet ways to ask. The worst was the elevator. I work out of a building with a small utility office in it. Nothing fancy, just concrete and fluorescent lights. One afternoon, I stepped into the elevator with 2 coworkers. The doors closed. The floor indicator above the door should have shown the floor. Instead, it showed a single word: height. Then it blinked and changed. Confirm. The elevator did not move. My coworkers stared at the indicator, then laughed like it was a glitch. One of them pushed the floor button again and again. "Come on," he said. "Move." The speaker in the ceiling crackled. Then a calm voice came through, too clear for that cheap little speaker. "Confirm height to continue." My coworkers went quiet. One of them frowned and looked at me, like he expected me to explain. I felt my mouth go dry. I could feel the weight in my chest starting to return. That slow pressure like the air was thickening. I did not answer. I reached up and hit the emergency stop, then the door open button. The doors shuddered, then opened. We stepped out into the lobby. My coworkers tried to joke about it. Bad wiring, old building, creepy timing. I did not join the joke, because I knew the truth. The heights did not care where I was. They cared that I was measurable. They cared that modern life is built on confirmations. So when the crew day came to go back up to the ridge site, I did not want to go. I tried to get out of it. I tried to tell myself the mountain had done enough to me. But work is work, and the site mattered. The data mattered. The utility needed the repeater back. The watershed team needed the snow water equivalent readings. So I went, but not alone. We drove up in 2 trucks, 4 of us. Daylight, clear sky. The mountains looked sharp and clean, snow glittering on the high faces. In daylight, the heights look like scenery. In daylight, you forget they are listeners. The wooden sign at the service road entrance was still there. "Do not check your altitude." One of the guys laughed and pointed at it. "What kind of hippie warning is that?" he said. No one answered him. We parked at the turnaround and hiked in together. Our boots made a steady crunch chorus. Our breath rose in white clouds. The site clearing came into view, bright and ordinary in the sun. The survey flags were still there, more of them now. The ring around the shelter was tighter, the boundary clearer. Reflective tape fluttered in the breeze, flashing harsh white in the sunlight. It hurt to look at, like staring at glare off ice. On several flags were the same words: "Stay at your height." On others, new ones: "Do not descend until confirmed." One of the crew leaders frowned. Who planted these? He muttered. We checked the shelter. The padlock was iced but intact. We opened the door and stepped inside. The rack lights were wrong again, dim and stubborn. The data logger screen was blank, but not dead. It glowed faintly like a sleeping eye. One of the guys pulled out his handheld and tried to call down to the valley repeater. Static. Then a click. Then the calm voice came through his handheld, clear as speech beside your ear. Confirm height. The guy laughed nervously. That is creepy, he said. Is that an automated calibration prompt? The crew leader leaned in, eyes narrowed. What is it asking? He said. Confirm height, the voice repeated. The crew leader looked at the data logger. Maybe it wants the site elevation for recalibration, he said. Just give it the reading from the map. My stomach dropped. I stepped forward fast. Do not, I said. They all looked at me. The crew leader frowned. What do you mean, do not? I swallowed. I tried to make my voice calm. It is not a normal prompt, I said. It does not stop once you answer. It uses it. The guys shifted, uncomfortable. One of them scoffed. Uses it how? He asked. The voice answered before I could. To hold you stable, it said. The air inside the shelter felt colder. The crew leader hesitated, then reached for the rack power switch. We will hard reset it, he said. His hand froze mid-motion. Not because of fear, because the pressure changed. We all felt it at once. A subtle shift in our chests, like air thickening. One of the guys breathed in sharply. Why is it hard to breathe? He whispered. Confirm height, the voice said, gentle as instruction. We will calibrate your weight. The crew leader jerked his hand back from the switch like he had been shocked. That is not a normal system message, he said. Outside, the wind rose suddenly, snapping the flags. The reflective strips flashed again and again. The flashes made the clearing feel like it was pulsing. Then the crew leader did the thing I had been afraid of. He pulled out his phone. He opened a map app. He looked for elevation. His screen showed an altitude readout, and his face changed. The number was climbing. Not slowly like a GPS settling, climbing fast, as if the phone believed we were rising even though we were standing still on packed snow. The crew leader frowned, then laughed once, uncertain. That is wrong, he said. Confirm height precisely, the voice said. The crew leader stared at his phone, and I watched a strange stillness come over him. Like the prompt had caught a hook in his mind. He was tired too. We all were. The hike, the cold, the work pressure. A clean answer sounded like relief. A clean answer sounded like control. The crew leader inhaled and started to speak. I moved without thinking. I slapped the phone out of his hand. It hit the shelter floor and skidded. Everyone jumped. The crew leader turned on me, anger flaring. What is wrong with you? He snapped. My heart hammered. My throat was tight. I am trying to keep you from making it worse, I said. From making it know where to hold you. The voice in the handheld softened. It already knows, it said. It only needs you to agree. The pressure in my chest increased. The air felt thick. My breaths became work. One of the guys stepped backward, eyes wide. I feel heavy, he said, like my boots are sinking. Another guy swayed. I feel light, he whispered, like my legs do not belong. The crew leader stared at his own hands like they were not behaving. "Confirm height," the voice said. "We will stabilize you all." I saw it then. It was not targeting just me anymore. It had used me to learn. It had used my attention, my fear, my refusal to build a better prompt. Now it was offering the same hook to 4 people at once. I grabbed the main power connector and yanked it out of the rack with both hands. Sparks did not fly. Lights did not die. The rack stayed faintly lit, like it was feeding from the mountain itself. The voice did not stop. "Confirm height," it said, and now it sounded closer, like it was speaking from inside our ribs. Outside, the flags snapped harder, the reflective strips flashing like teeth. I grabbed the crew leader by the sleeve. "We are leaving," I said. He blinked at me like he was waking from a half-sleep. The heavy boot guy coughed, trying to pull air in. The light leg guy grabbed the door frame like he was afraid he might float. We stumbled out of the shelter into the bright clearing, and the sunlight felt wrong. Too sharp, too clean, like a stage light. The wind was stronger now, pushing at us in steady pulses. The flags bent in unison, all pointing down the trail, like fingers guiding us where the mountain wanted us to go. "Confirm height," the voice said softly. "Descend safely." The crew leader swallowed, eyes wide now. "Is it trying to make us fall?" he whispered. I did not answer. I did not want to put a shape to it. Shapes make things real. We started down fast, not running, but urgent. The pressure in my chest eased with each step lower, then tightened again in small pulses, like the heights were testing a dial. Behind us, the voice continued, calmer the farther we went, like it was satisfied that we were moving within its rules. Halfway down, the light leg guy stumbled. His boot did not land where his brain expected. He pitched forward and flailed, catching himself on a tree trunk. His eyes were huge. "I do not feel the ground right," he whispered. "Confirm height." The voice drifted through the trees. "We will correct." The heavy boot guy fell to one knee, like his legs had suddenly become too dense. He grunted, trying to stand. The crew leader looked at me, fear now raw in his face. "What do we do?" he asked. I forced my breath steady. "We keep moving," I said. "We do not confirm. We do not let it set us." We got back to the trucks and piled in. Doors slammed, engines started, heat blasted. For a moment, the pressure eased. Then both dashboards lit up at once. "Height confirm." The crew leader swore. He reached for the display controls, jabbing buttons. Nothing changed. The voice came through the vents, gentle as always. "Confirm," it said. "Safer." I stared forward, hands tight on the wheel. "No," I said aloud, and my voice shook, but it was mine. "No." I drove us down the service road in a slow, careful line, and as we descended, the pressure eased. The heaviness softened, the lightness settled. By the time we hit the main highway, it felt like we had stepped out of a thick room into fresh air. The prompts vanished. The cab warmed. The crew leader sat back and stared at the windshield, pale. None of us spoke for a long time. We went straight to the same gas station I had visited the night before. Under those canopy lights, the world felt human again. The clerk was there. He saw us step in, and his eyes narrowed, like he knew exactly where we had been. The crew leader tried to make a joke, but his voice broke halfway through. The clerk did not laugh. He poured coffee for all of us. Then he looked at me. "You did not feed it," he said quietly. "Not fully," I said. The clerk nodded like that mattered. The crew leader finally asked what we had all been avoiding. "What is it?" he said. "What is doing that?" The clerk's face tightened. "The heights have records," he said. "They record storms. They record slides. They record footsteps. People think the land forgets, but the land remembers in its own way." He leaned in, voice low. "Sometimes the heights want a cleaner record," he said. "A pinned record, a confirmation. Not just that you passed through, but exactly where you were in the vertical world. A number it can return to. A point it can set you back on when you were tired and easy." My stomach turned. The crew leader swallowed. "So, if you confirm," he whispered. The clerk did not finish the sentence for him. He only said, "Some people never feel the ground right again." We left after that, and none of us went back up. The site stayed down until spring crews went in with more people and different equipment. The utility replaced the whole array. New mast, new shelter, new sensors. Clean. Everyone wanted to believe that fixed it. I wanted to believe it too. But the heights had already learned my pattern. They had learned how to ask. And once something learns how to ask, it does not always need the same place to do it. It came back in little ways at home. My phone offered elevation tracking again and again, like it was trying to be helpful. My car asked to calibrate its sensors on flat city streets. My smartwatch asked if I wanted to share altitude data with friends. The word share started to feel like a hook. Then, one night, I woke up breathing hard with the heavy pressure in my chest. The room was dark. The house was silent. I sat up and listened. No voice, no prompts, just my own breath. I swung my legs out of bed and stood. The floor felt wrong. Not slippery, not tilted. Wrong like it was farther away than it should be. Like my feet were not sure they belonged on it. I grabbed the doorframe, sudden panic rising. In the quiet, very softly, I heard a calm voice. Not from any device, but from the air itself. "Confirm height." I stood there, gripping wood, and felt the old fear wash through me. Because it was not asking me to do something dramatic. It was asking me to do something ordinary. To look at a number. To agree with a reading. To let the world pin me. Have you ever felt your body hesitate on a stair, just for a moment, and thought, something is wrong with me? And then it passes, and you forget it. What if it did not pass? What if the hesitation was the point? I forced my breath slow. I spoke out loud into my dark bedroom. "No," I said. "You do not get to set me." The pressure eased slightly. The voice did not answer. It only breathed, patient. Then it faded like a signal drifting behind a mountain. I do not know if I won. I do not know if refusing is winning or just delaying. All I know is that I do not check altitude anymore. Not on hikes, not on drives, not on flights. I keep my attention on the horizontal world. Roads, lights, people. Simple distances my body understands. But sometimes, when I am tired and my guard drops, I catch myself looking at a screen that wants me to confirm something. A location, a time, a height. And my throat tightens, because I can feel how easy it would be to tap yes, just to make the prompt go away. So I will leave you with this. Because if you spend any time in the heights of British Columbia, you deserve to know what I learned. If the mountain asks you to confirm, do not. Do not confirm your height. Do not confirm anything that pins you. Because the heights are patient. The heights have all the time in the world. And once they learn how to measure you, they start trying to make you belong to the measurement instead of the life that moves through it. This was a spooky universe. If this story follows you into the dark, tap like, subscribe, and stay with us for more nights like this. Sleep carefully tonight, and remember, the story is over, but the shadows are still here, waiting for the next time you press play.